Hello and welcome back to another video about cells. This time we're talking about energy processes, photosynthesis, respiration, fermentation, and that wonderful substance called ATP, the energy that all living things use in their everyday lives. So first of all, don't forget to make a page in your lab book that you can take notes on. Topic goes at the top, the date goes over on the upper right-hand corner. And then the main ideas and concepts, that's where you write the ideas that we talk about. And that is where you would put the vocabulary words that you might highlight. Remember, you don't need to write out the definitions unless you really want to. You want to waste a lot of paper and a lot of ink or lead or whatever it is that you're writing with, because you can find those on Quizlet. So without further ado, ATP. All organisms need energy in order to survive. And that energy is in the form of ATP. Now, that ATP energy, well, obviously, you know, photosynthesis comes from the sun. The sun shines down on plants. And plants capture that sun's energy and they store it in something called glucose, also known as sugar. Exactly. There are lots of different kinds of sugars. There are glucose, there's fructose, there's sucrose, there's maltose, there's even deoxyribose, and then maybe one that you would think of. How about lactose? That's another kind of sugar. That's the sugar found in milk. Anyhow, ATP energy then is taken from the glucose through a process called respiration and turned into ATP energy. So, first of all, we're going to start with the photosynthesis formula. Photosynthesis formula has three parts. It has inputs, it has outputs, and right in the middle, it has causes. Now, there's two parts that I want you to look at, but only one that you really need to remember. First of all, there is the formula. That's these letters and number combinations. The second is the words down at the bottom. Means the same thing. It's talking about the same thing. You do not need to know 6CO2 plus 6H2O with an arrow makes C6H12O6 plus 6O2. You need to know that carbon dioxide plus water with the sun's influence makes sugar, glucose, and oxygen. So this means 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. So in order for the cell to carry out photosynthesis, for a producer to carry out photosynthesis, they need to have carbon dioxide and water. And then the sun is the cause, and the sun actually is captured by something called chlorophyll, which you've probably heard of. It's found in the chloroplast of the cell. And when that happens, it then breaks down the water and carbon dioxide, and it turns it into sugar, which is the specific sugar is glucose, and oxygen. And the plants then, or the producers, give off oxygen, or if it's a cell, the cell gives off oxygen. And then there are consumers, which then use the oxygen for their process that they need. Photosynthesis. We've talked about it. Bubbles. You know what those bubbles are? Well, let's just look. There's a video here you can watch. It's going to ask you, what are the bubbles? The bubbles are carbon dioxide or oxygen. Which one? They're oxygen because it gives off oxygen in the formula. So now moving on to the respiration formula. It's basically the same thing, only backwards. You're going to notice it even has the same stuff. Instead of having the carbon dioxide and water over in the input, now the carbon dioxide and the water are on the output. And instead of having the sugar and the oxygen on the on the output, now the sugar and oxygen are on the input. And instead of having the sun causing this, we have some things that are found inside of cells called enzymes. The enzymes are the troublemakers. They're the things that cause things to happen inside of these cells. This does not happen just in animal cells. This happens in all cells. It happens in the mitochondria, the part that makes energy for you. So, you put in sugar, you breathe oxygen, and if the enzymes react with it, it produces carbon dioxide and water. That's just the waste products. But the most important thing is this stuff here called ATP energy. And that is the stuff then we use to grow, to move, anything that we do that requires energy. So again, respiration, just the definition, using oxygen to release stored energy from food. And the energy that it makes then is called ATP. So there is a special case then. There's something called fermentation. And fermentation is a process that's just about the same as respiration. The only difference is instead of using oxygen, it uses something else. And so I have some formulas down here for you. They are not all that important. You do not need to know them, but you do need to know that fermentation is a process that makes ATP without using oxygen, and it usually produces something called lactic acid, or it produces some sort of alcohol. If you ever do any long distance running, when you get done, they tell you not to sit down, take lots of deep breaths, open up so that you can breathe and get in oxygen. Well, that oxygen then goes back in and it clears out the lactic acid that can be inside your muscles. And the lactic acid could be harmful, but if you continue to breathe, it just changes it back into a simple form of water. So there's the definition of fermentation. That brings us to the end. Those are the energy processes. Those are the things that either make something that makes ATP or actually turns some sort of sugar into ATP energy that can be used inside cells and therefore can also be used in organisms, because basically the cells are found inside of an organism. So, photosynthesis, respiration, and fermentation, those are the energy processes that you need to know for this slide deck. See you next time.